As human beings, we are drawn to look at chaos. We are drawn to conflict. We don't like it if we have to experience it personally, but our attention is drawn there. And it's drawn there for two reasons. Hey now, how is everybody doing? Welcome to Alert Diaries with Tanya E. I want to share the HAT framework a little bit different for you today. And I'll use this TV show that I've looked at. I don't know how many of you have seen Married at First Sight. It's a TV show where there are couples that come together and they get married sight unseen. Imagine meeting and marrying your spouse on the first day. So if you're looking for more detailed information about what Married at First Sight is, I found a great YouTuber that shares her touch points on it and gives you an explanation. So I encourage you to go see My Sweet Perspective. I'll leave her link down below because she gives you a quick snapshot of what Married at First Sight means, and her take on the characters is a little bit similar to how I would have already characterized them myself. So let's talk about what's going on with Married at First Sight, because the thing about this show that makes it so amazing and so great is that it puts you in a position where you are forced to let who you are show up. Now, they do a lot of assessments and other things, and I'm not sure the dynamic of how the show puts the couples together, but I know they do some framework. Now, they have these experts that are there that bring their expertise and insight of what they do into this environment to try to be a better support to those that join this journey. Now, Pastor Cal and Dr. Pepper are two people that have been there the longest to support these individuals in pairing and coupling them up. And more recently, they've had Dr. Pia join them, who is a clinical psychologist. Now, between the three of them, they select the couples based off of the questions that the couples have stated and all the different information. And you can go and research Married at First Sight for yourself. Now, the thing about this, when they put these individuals together, they have a short period of time. It's like putting your entire relationship in a pressure cooker to see how you will respond. When individuals are put in situations that cause that much chaos, well, those of you that follow me on a regular basis recognize that your normal perspective, if you're heart-centered, action-oriented, or developer, when you switch gears and your environment changes where it's no longer supportive, no longer giving, no longer a helpful environment that lets you shine, those same characteristics, being heart-centered as a supportive, loving, giving person, it switches in chaos where you become fostering, supporting bad behavior that does not support you, and in the long term really doesn't help the person that you're wanting to help to begin with. So this pressure cooker that they have put in place for these marriages puts them in a position where they see how you operate when things are going well and how you function when things are in chaos. Now, those of you that know, I teach only one thing, relationships. And I teach it from two perspectives, how you function professionally and how you function personally. But I'm only talking about two environments, when things are going well and when you enter into chaos. Because having walked that journey, I had to discover, Tanya, how do you really show up when this occurs? Because some of us are walking around with what I call your unconscious excellence. There are things that you do well automatically that when people see you, that element is who they see and who they want to be with. You, as a heart-centered soul, you pour into them. You look out for them. You want to make certain that they're okay. And for individuals that are looking for that characteristic, they're naturally drawn to you. But when you enter into conflict and you find yourself on the other side, how you show up, it may not be the heart-centered soul that people originally see that shows up in conflict. Because what we have is what I call conflict sequence. Your conflict sequence has a different persona. The supportive person that I was sharing as the heart-centered soul becomes fostering when things don't go well. And the only reason you do that as a heart-centered person is because you just want to get back to where things are good. And in your mind's eye, if you can just cater to what they want, give them what they need, then the thought is, surely you can get back to where you can be the supporting, heart-centered soul that you always are. Now, I'll also share that each of these pieces is just a small subset. My HAD framework, like many other personality assessments and other things that you take in that arena, it only gives you a small subset of who you are at the core of your being. This is just one piece of your multifaceted self. So when you take these assessments and you're watching these episodes and these shows like Married at First Sight, they're only looking at one part of who you are. So when they throw you inside of these social experiences and you see, why would they do that to them? Why would they put those people together? There is something about their personality and something about whatever the assessment was that said these pieces linked with these pieces could bring out the best in these individuals. Now, there are two couples I want to focus on and giving a little more expression about what this looks like. So if you are a fan of the show, watching season 18 may be doing something to your soul. Because it is a roller coaster ride watching these social experiences anyway. As human beings, we are drawn to look at chaos. We are drawn to conflict. We don't like it if we have to experience it personally, but our attention is drawn there. And it's drawn there for two reasons. First, we're drawn to the chaos that's occurring because we want to see, is there something that I need to look out for? And if you look at it from a growth perspective, it's helpful. For some individuals, they just want to see how is it going to turn out because some part of your brain will see if that's how they got through that situation. If I'm found in that similar situation, maybe I can use that. And that's a subconscious thing that typically happens in the background of our lives. But having watched it, because I am an organizational assessment coach, and the reason I walk down that journey to get certified in what I teach, share, and show is because of my own personal chaos. Those of you that watch me on a regular basis, you know that I got married at 21. After 11 years of marriage, I found myself going through a divorce, having to raise my two sons alone. So over our 11-year marriage, we were growing into the versions of ourselves. By the time these people are showing up and Married at First Sight, they have walked through a longer time period than I did at 21. And they have some idea of who they believe they are. They've walked through some relational elements in their lives and they recognize what I have done is not working for me. Let me just try something different because they're heart-centered souls. Each of us carry that element inside of our being. It may not be a deep hue like someone else, because when I teach this to my clients, I use a color sequence that gives them an idea so they can get a quick touch point about how to identify a heart-centered soul. And I use the color blue for that because the deep ocean blue means the person that is really deep in giving, really deep and supportive. You've seen that person from a professional perspective. They typically work for the human resources department because they care about the people that are there and they want to ensure that you're onboarded. And you know that they are deep blue when they check on you, see how you're doing, do little touch points like that. Now, if you still being heart-centered soul and your shade of blue is not a deep hue, you can be what I call sky blue. And your sky blue visionary elements, you care about the people that are around you. You may not always tell them, but the things that you do with them in mind. I am not quite sky blue, but I am not a deep blue either. The way that I'm wired is sort of in the middle. I have sort of a place where I consider you in the things that I do, but I may not always tell you. And then I have those moments where I just want to be near you, just want to touch base with you. And in this show, one of those characters that I recognize who has a hue of blue that is similar to mine is MM. Oh, I love her. From the time I saw her interview, was like, oh, I really wish that she gets someone that appreciates her, that is supportive of her. Because being a nurse practitioner, she has a heart-centered soul to want to make certain that everybody that comes into her office gets the support that they need to know that they are cared for, and she is genuine in that. As a result of that, it works well for her. But there's another part. Because I've shared earlier, we have all three elements of the HAD framework. In addition to being heart-centered, MM is also a developer. Now, with a developer, these individuals are usually the natural, logical, analytical nerds that we typically see in our world. And they are also process oriented. They're detailed. They want to know how things are working. So when we were walking through looking at the Mavs element, when MM was getting the chance to meet up with her husband, EKG, she was asking him some questions because the questions help those that are developers get a little more insight about how can I let my blue hue be the best for you. She was looking to get the data points that can give her the insight so that on a regular basis, incorporated naturally into her world, into her work, and into her thoughts, she could be the best wife for EKG. Because in her mind's eye at this time, I have done what I needed to get a sure foundation because she was so action oriented and focusing on building her practice so that it did not adversely affect her personal life when she was ready. Her heart centered soul knew, okay, hey, I've done what I need to develop the practice that was necessary. I took the actions that I had to ensure that the foundation is laid well. So now when I give my heart, I can give more of me and not have a diverted attention from working on the business to help it grow and trying to be the wife that I want to be for the person in my world. So when she was asking questions, which seemed to turn off her spouse, now let's have a quick touch point about Ikechi. Now, when Mavs shares his story, they share that he's artistic and that he's a musician. He's a high school teacher, counselor. I got to go back and take a look at that. But go look at Ashley's channel because she breaks down who the characters are, what they do, and all the different touch points a little bit deeper. I'm not going to walk into that because what I want to share with you is how you can quickly identify these personalities. And if you go back and look at Married at First Sight, then you will see these personalities, how they unfold, and how the HAD framework comes together. So that when things are going well, you see in the first couple of episodes, and when they enter themselves into conflicts, which you are looking at if you are in the later parts of the season. So when Ikechi shows up and shares what looks like a nice, beautiful, heart-centered moment that he's looking for someone to love, and this being his second time on this show, he's aware of the process. He knows what he has to go through. So you want to believe that he is ready for the process and he is looking to give his all in it and the artistic elements of his being, which has a tendency to be a blend of being heart centered and action oriented. Because individuals that have similar elements of being supportive, like a teacher, and wanting to draw out the artistic elements of those around them, tend to be a blend of heart centered and action oriented elements. They do enough to give you a task, but they also want to enjoy the moment. Not let it go too fast so they can enjoy your time. Not let things be too rushed or dig too deep. Because if you go there in their mind, you'll miss being fully present. Now, I appreciate that. Because when things are going well, those are the things that we need. But when you switch those same elements, you're no longer blending them. You are picking a side. And when I saw this episode unfold and how EKG was showing up, because when things are going well, he was heart centered, just like the wife that they picked for him, MM, heart centered as well. Now, she had a deeper hue of blue than his. And when she found herself in chaos, she picked the heart centered part and started using the fostering element when things didn't go well to get back to being heart centered so that she can love on him, be present for him, and pour into him. But when he went into chaotic moments, instead of letting his heart centered part show up, he chose the action oriented piece in chaos that shows up as forceful, passive aggressive, and it was not pretty. And it was in those moments when I saw the conversations when they were having the initial pieces, I'm like, I recognize that he's a heart centered, action oriented individual. I wonder if his conflict sequence starts with being forceful because he said some words that gave me pause. He had some elements about his being that I was a little unsure of. And when I teach this to my clients, when I walk them through the conflict sequence, I give them insight about how to see a little bit deeper what it is that this person is showing. How are they displaying themselves? Because if you can see some of those pieces, then you'll get the opportunity to know how to counter them. So even though Married at First Sight has all these amazing assessments to help their individuals get coupled up, what I learned is that there are different ways that you need to show up and communicate when people are walking through their conflict sequence. And if you're aware initially of what the conflict sequence is, when they find themselves in positions that are not supportive of them, they'll be able to come back and get a little bit away of reconnecting by being clear. So for those that are watching Married at First Sight, if you find yourself in a position like MM and Ikechi, where you're in conflict now, things broke down and you're not sure, we get the chance to see them in an 8-week sequence go through a lot of stuff. And in them walking through that journey, they were not prepared with the conflict sequence because they didn't know it. At any rate, if you're looking for examples about how to use the HAD framework and also what I call the sitting on the edge of my bed trying to figure out how did I get here, but I knew there was a way of getting through this. So I decided to do an autopsy on my marriage. Red alert. Is he the one? The pocket guide to finding a love of your life. The free chapter is available for you in the link below. The 3 F's as we get into a better position. I am hoping that you take the time to see some real life examples. And if you have a show that gives you some real life examples about the HAB framework, drop that in the comments below. And so for today, if anything that I've shared resonates with you, then it's time to like, comment, and share this information with others. Because my desire is to give you something actionable that you can take away so that you can start applying the resources that you need to get healed, to get whole, and to move into a better direction. Because when I walk through resetting my life in the aftermath of my divorce, this framework supported me in recognizing how I show up when things are going well and how I show up when things are not so well. Oh, there was a big difference, y'all. One last thing for those of you that are watching Married at First Sight, I have to give kudos to Miss Keisha Knight Pulliam. You are so on point with your assessment, and I love how you draw out in the after party more information from these individuals that I think are causing them to think about some things. And I don't know when the after parties get recorded, but if they can include you a little earlier on to have a conversation with these people, I think it will go a whole lot better as they walk through navigating the hurdles of this show. At any rate, if you are looking for someone to join you on the journey so that you can have greater insight in what you may be experiencing, go to my website, tanyaehood.com. There you can click on the Work With Me tab and see the various ways that we can work with one another. And if you want to have an extended conversation, join me live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we can continue the conversation or we can start a new one. In the meantime, this is Tanya E. Hood walking in my purpose, and I want you to do the same.